Good morning and welcome to the verse of the day plus. Give me a moment to share this out on Facebook and Twitter. And we will be on our way. Okay, let me just pop out the chat. Okay, so today the verse of the day is found in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Yeah, because I doubt anybody is going to put a law against, love or joy or peace, kindness or goodness, being good to somebody, or kind to somebody, or faithful to somebody, or gentle towards somebody, and using your self-control, and loving somebody, having joy or peace. I forget what forbearance means. Let's see whether in another translation whether this translates to something that we can understand. Long suffering, it says here. Um, so, guess that goes along with patience. Being patient. You can't make a law against these things. Or if you can, you'd be a very pathetic society. And they had no laws against that. It's about the only way that you can tell maybe somebody who practiced all those things was a Christian, but then that'd be your only proof because, you know. But then again, for somebody having them, you don't want to accuse them just because they're loving. Well, I don't think there's much more I can say on that. Otherwise, I'd go around in circles. So, let's see. Let's bring up the... I got two chats here. I don't know which is which. So, I will pop up the chat again. And we will chat. So, we are in the second half of chapter 27. Okay, so I just got to figure, was I here? Did I end here? Yeah, I did. Okay, Peter writes, may God give you more and more grace by his divine power. God has given us everything we need for living a godly life. 2 Peter chapter 1 verses 2 and 3. Peter refers to God's grace as his divine power that gives us the ability to live a godly live godly, holy. Reality is we can't receive anything from God unless we believe, and we cannot believe what we do not know. It's approximately 2% of the American Christians know grace empowers us. Then roughly 98% of the American Christians are trying to live a holy life in their own ability, which is impossible. Frustration, defeat, desperation, depression, condemnation, and guilt are all sure to follow these scenarios. Hence, the reason becomes why Christian communicators would lump all aspects of holiness into the potential category of holiness. Too many Christians have suffered discouragement from the lack of ability to live a godly life in their unabated strength. Grace is not only God's answer to salvation and forgiveness, but powerful provision to live a holy life. The writer of Hebrews states, the one thing that I think about though is he wants to use a comparison to Superman. Before Superman knew that the sun powered him, he was still empowered and still had the abilities and still used the abilities to live a super life. So, I'm not sure whether you need to know, but it can. I guess it can help. Especially if you get in a hindrance, knowing about getting out of a dark place. Superman would know if he got, eventually when he found out about the sun part, he gets out into the sun, if he knows if he's out of the sun, yellow sun for a time, he loses the powers. Eventually he would learn that, and he'd have to get out in the sun to get sunbathe, if you will, to restore his powers. It can help, but you doesn't necessarily need to know to live with that, to be helped. I would say anyways. Pursue holiness without which no one can see the Lord, looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God. Hebrews chapter 12, 14 through 15, New King James Version. There is so much more in these two verses. First, the word pursue is the Greek word for diko. It is defined as to follow or press hard after, to pursue with earnestness and diligence in order to obtain. And other dictionaries state to something with intense effort, with definite purpose or goal. After reading each of these two definitions, we should first ask, is this positional holiness or behavioral holiness? The answer is simple. It has to be behavioral. Look at it like this. Can you imagine saying to my wife, Lisa Bevere, you need to apply intense effort to obtain the position of being John Bevere's wife? Not while she's your wife. It'd be before that she would need that. She would laugh and say, I am already his wife. In regards to position, we are already holy. We don't have to apply intense effort to chase after. So the writer of Hebrews must be addressing behavior. We are to pursue with diligence behavioral holiness. If we don't, we will fall short of the grace of God. How can we fall short of the cover-up grace that has been preached in our time? It would be impossible, yet when we understand grace is God's divine empowerment to chase after behavioral holiness, we comprehend how we can fall short of this. The writer of Hebrews ends this chapter with, "Let us have grace by which we may serve God acceptably." Hebrews chapter 12, verse 28, New King James Version. Grace empowers us to serve God in an acceptable way and live holy life, a holy life. Now, the important part we read, pursue holiness without which no one will see the Lord. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 14. What is this writer talking about? Isn't everyone going to see Jesus? We are clearly told, "Behold, he is coming with clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him." Revelation chapter 1, verse 7. So how can the scripture communicate without holiness we won't see the Lord? What does this mean? Seeing Jesus. Allow me to illustrate. Seeing the Lord means, as promised in the pursuit of holiness in my 58 years of being an American citizen, there have been 12 presidents of the United States. I've been under the jurisdiction and leadership of all of them, and their decisions have affected my life. I've often referred to each of them as our president. However, I've never seen one in person. There are other U.S. citizens who see the president on an ongoing basis since they are friends or work with him. These privileged ones see him regularly and are frequently in his presence. Along the same lines, I've known a lot of facts down through the years about our U.S. presidents, what they stand for, the decisions they make, their personal history, and other information made known to the public. But what have what have I not been privy to is experience personal interaction with these leaders. Therefore, I'm unfamiliar with intimate areas of their life, the things that aren't made known to the general public, and I've certainly come close to having the pleasure of being a personal friend to one of them. Similarly, there are Christians who are under the jurisdiction of Jesus because he is their leader. His decisions affect their lives, and they call him Lord, but they don't see him and are not in his presence. You may question this, but allow me to have Jesus settle this truth. The person who has my commands and keeps them is one who really loves me. And whoever really loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love him, and he will manifest myself to him. I will let myself be clearly seen by him and make myself real to him. John chapter 14:21, Amplified Bible, I believe. Look at his words. Let myself be clearly seen. To have to keep Jesus' commands is to chase after behavior holiness. These who do this see the Lord. He is clearly revealed to them. He grants them access into His manifest presence. The relationship transcends merely under His rulership to the level of friendship with our King. He again says, "You are my friends if you keep on doing things which I command you to do." John chapter 15, verse 14. Please notice the word "if" in this statement. We sing songs, write books, teach messages about Jesus being our friend, but the word "if" means His friendship is conditional. Friendship with Jesus is based on our genuine holiness. Those who make it priority transcend from servant to friend. Jesus says to the men who remain loyal to Him, "No longer do I call you servants." John chapter 15, verse 15. The fact that He says "no longer" means at one time they were regarded as servants, not friends. In fact, a servant of God isn't a bad position. It's certainly much better than having no relationship with Him. However, a servant doesn't know why behind the what, but a friend often does. You may counter, "But we are all sons and daughters of God." Yes, but we must remember the truth Paul shares, that the heir, as long as he is a child, does not differ from a slave. Galatians chapter 4, verse 1, New King James. The Greek word for slave is not the exact same word Jesus used for the word servant in the above sentence. As long as the son or daughter is a child, he or she normally is not privy to the why, just the what of God's doing. It's a wonderful occurrence for both parent and child when a son or daughter graduates to becoming a friend. The same is true for the family of God. A change occurs in the relationship dynamic as our Father lets us in on more secrets, but there's a change for us as well. We now live more passionately to not disappoint Him, much more than just disobeying Him. We still and always will seek to obey, but it's no longer our heart's driving force. Not disappointing Him is the door. Holiness, therefore, is not an end in itself as legalists portray. It is an entranceway to intimacy with Jesus. Now we discover the importance of the door that Jesus refers to. It's the heart of a believer. Our neglect to pursue holiness removes our ability to hear and respond. We subsequently lose privilege of a feast with Him. It could be compared to a house so noisy we can't hear when someone of great importance, or any someone's, you don't know whether they're of great importance or not, is knocking on the front door. After repeated knocks and eventually calling out our name and desire, the guest will eventually leave. In avoiding teachings on holiness, what we have done is block the pathway that lends to intimacy with our King, which is what every true believer desires. More than anything else, our strategy is teaching a covering grace that omits empowering grace, has in essence shuts the door and turned the deadbolt. We've undersold grace for both it for both covers as well as empowers. However, the empowerment aspect is vital in positioning us to enjoy fellowship with the Master. Lisa and I have a marriage certificate from the state of Indiana, so we are legally married. Can you imagine the scenario? I'll hold my marriage certificate up in her face and declare, "Hey honey, we are married. We are legally bound to each other, but I'm having affairs with other women. I may technically be married to Lisa, but it's certain she would no longer share her innermost desires and secrets with me. In fact, intimacy will cease. We will no longer be friends because I have lost that privilege. It is a great life. It is what we got married for. If I persist on this course, I will eventually lose my marriage permanently." How have we encouraged a similar behavior in what we've taught in the church? Do we hold up a few scriptures that, if isolated from other sections of the New Testament, it seems to show all is well no matter how we behave? Can we now jump in bed with the world while still declaring Jesus? We have to recite the sinner's prayer, are saved by grace and belong to you. Can we possibly believe He will let us into the intimate parts of His heart? The motivations for me to not commit adultery against Lisa is that I don't ever want to lose the wonder of those special intimate times when our heads are on the pillow facing each other and she whispers something to me that she would never tell anyone else. I don't want to lose the pleasure of those interactions with this remarkable woman who's my wife. It's no different with Jesus. The reason I don't commit adultery against Him is that I don't want to lose our closeness and throw away our friendship. There is nothing greater, no status, no riches, no pleasure, no activity, no popularity, no position, no sin. Nothing better than the intimacy with Jesus. I can't imagine life without His promise. I will tell you a remarkable secret you do not know, Jeremiah 33 verse 3. Or the awesome reality that He reveals deep and secret things, Daniel chapter 2 verse 22, New King James Version. Or I can't imagine living without Jesus' offer to me. No longer speak in figurative language, but I will tell you plainly. John chapter 16 verse 25. And of course the promise of the Holy Spirit showing us things to come. John 16 verse 13. Chapter 16 verse 13. Holiness is not a negative. On the contrary, it's one of the most positive truths in the New Testament. When we really understand its potential, we shout it from the rooftops. Take action. Holiness isn't a bad word. It's a password. It's a way that enables you to open the door of your heart to God's voice. Without holiness, you won't ever hear when God's speaking to you. This holiness is not just something that God gives you because of Jesus' sacrifice. It is something you must live out in thought, word, and action. But it's not something God leaves you to struggle with alone. This is why God gives us grace. His grace does far more than just save us. Through that much is amazing. God's grace empowers us to live holy lives from the inside out, fully pleasing to God. Seek God right now. Don't wait any longer, but take this moment to cry out for God's grace. Name the area of your life where you need His grace the most, and pray that God will fill you with grace to overcome everything that hinders you from hearing His voice. And that's the end of that chapter. Tomorrow we start on 28, which is the last chapter. And then, of course, we'll go over the few questions that they show. That'll be on Monday. And then we'll start into the Bible study portion of Who Needs a Superhero. Hopefully on Saturdays, I'll put up portions of it till finish. Well, I've got most of it up there, so I'll put up portions. Okay, so bye for now. God bless. Love you all. Have a great and wonderful day.